Welcome to Comics with Dan. I'm going to be reviewing the Displaced number 5. So if you've been following my reviews, particularly on this book, you know that I think it's just one of the best books that's come out so far this year. If you haven't been following it, it's a 5-issue miniseries from Boom Studios, written by Ed Brisson with art by Luca Casalanguida and colors by Dee Cunniffe, as well as letters by Hassan Otsmane Elhau. So it's a story about the city of Oshawa, Ontario, and how one day it just disappeared off of the face of the earth, and the people of the world completely forgot about the city of Oshawa as well as all of its inhabitants. And then in addition to that, our main characters are residents of Oshawa that were not in Oshawa at the time it disappeared. So they're traveling around and nobody knows who they are, and basically their footprint on this earth is being erased. So right off the bat, just like a really cool premise for a story. I do think that it very easily could have fallen into the trap of being, just another Twilight Zone episode. That kind of spooky thriller mystery that's been done 100 times. But I think that Ed Brisson really did a good job of making sure that wasn't the case. A lot of times when you have books where something tragic happens, the readers often look to try to find a happy ending to sort of make them feel better about what happened to these characters at the beginning of the book. Now, that being said, this story, rather than being a book about revenge or being made whole, this is really a story about coping with loss. Rather than all the characters getting to happily reunite with their loved ones, we see them sort of accept their fate at the end of this 5th issue. I think I really liked that Ed Brisson didn't over-explain sort of what had happened. We didn't get a real detailed explanation on what exactly happened to Oshawa. It disappeared, and that's the extent of the explanation. We don't know what happened to some of our main characters who sort of vanished, Gabby, Paige, and so on. We don't know what happened to them after they vanished. Did they die? Did they go somewhere else where the other survivors of Oshawa are? It's not really answered, but I do think that kind of adds to this book rather than takes away from it, because it keeps it as a mystery and really just shows that Brisson doesn't think that his readers aren't smart enough to sort of connect dots at the end of the story and kind of come up with their own opinions, which I really appreciate that. So like I said, this story is about sort of coping with loss and how different people handle that. Paige lost her mother and didn't get to make amends before she died. And sort of telling that story to Emmett in this last issue here. Gabby was so lost without her family, her husband and daughter, that she just walked off. She didn't care if she was going to disappear like the others. She just couldn't handle it anymore. And I think probably the two most interesting characters and how this is portrayed, is Emmett and Tavis, or Tav. And Tavis, he kind of lost himself. I mean, when Oshawa disappeared, he immediately went rogue and started, with the morally ambiguous moves, and slowly and surely moved into not so morally ambiguous, but really just downright evil stuff, like keeping that junkie high so they could rent hotel rooms under his name was just, he showed every bit of the negative side of humanity, while all the others were trying to kind of keep their humanity throughout this. I think that Emmett's particularly interesting because he's the only one of these main characters that didn't have really a loved one. I mean, he had his friend at the beginning that he had been talking to, truthfully, though, he didn't seem too terribly broken up that he wasn't able to reach out to his friend. And we got to see that in issue number 2, where he does try to reach out to his friend, and his friend acts like he doesn't know who he is because he doesn't remember him. And Emmett seems bothered by that, but not to the extent that, Gabby is bothered by losing her family and so on. So Emmett's the only one that doesn't have sort of a loved one that he has lost in this process. And he is the one who continues this cycle of cities disappearing, right? You see at the end of this issue, Emmett is sort of the herald of the next place, Felsburg, Pennsylvania, the next place that drops off the face of the earth. So I think that was sort of a nice touch to the writing, that this story is all about, losing your loved ones, losing yourself, but sort of like what happens if you don't have anyone to lose. And it's really just interesting to see that Emmett's sort of doomed to repeat this cycle, and Paige even says as much, that she's glad she's at peace, but she feels sorry for Emmett because he's going to be alone, and I think that's really powerful. The other thing that it kind of made me think about was Harold. I think in the second or third issue, he kills himself, and it presumably because he can't bear the idea of going through this process again of a city disappearing, right? And so Harold had said in the first issue that he's seen this happen before, but I kind of wonder how many times Harold has seen this happen, right? If we're seeing that this happened to Emmett with Oshawa, and now he's seeing it happen in Felsburg, Pennsylvania, how long has Harold gone through this? Was he as young as Emmett whenever the first time that this happened to him, and he's just been doing this for years and years? I mean, it's a really kind of an interesting thing to think about. And again, I'm glad that Ed Brisson didn't reveal sort of what the story behind that was. It allows the reader to think about it, formulate their own opinions, and kind of become part of the story by being able to, kind of decide for yourself what you think happened in the end there. So Luca Castellanguida, he continued from issue 1 through 5, just really great art. He depicts some really, emotionally driving scenes throughout this final issue here. One scene in particular that I thought he did a really good job on was Paige's sort of last moments sitting on the beach with Emmett. And it was just really well illustrated, and you kind of, could feel that this was the end for her. This was the end for the last of the Oshawa survivors, apart from Emmett. The very moment that Emmett becomes alone and then goes on to Felsburg and to basically do it all over again. D. Cunniffe uses a darker color palette in the beginning pages of this issue, kind of showing how our characters here, they've hit rock bottom. There's really nowhere for them to go. But what I do find interesting is that some of the colors that Cunniffe used at the end of this book were reminiscent of a sunrise, which sort of plays into the theme that Ed Brisson put into the book of, this repetitive process with the cities disappearing, and Emmett's going to be there to sort of help them through it. There wasn't a whole lot to be hopeful for at the end of this story, but that sort of made it feel, Cunniffe's colors really made it feel like maybe there was something to be hopeful for, like Emmett might be able to help these people, turn out more like he and Paige did, rather than how, Harold or how Tave did. I still think that Hassan Otsmane Elhau is possibly the best letterer in all of comics right now. Just the care and detail that he takes to shape both his speech bubbles and the actual letters to match how he wants the character to sound it's unmatched. I think that you can see a lot of lettering in comics now that is just, we need the letters on there as fast as possible. Let's get them on and move along. He does not do that. He takes care, and every single panel has a character speaking a certain way, and it's reflected in the letters, which I think, can be a really overlooked thing in a lot of comics, because if you don't know what you're looking for with good lettering, you can kind of miss it, right? So I think the biggest thing here, again, is just the care and precision to craft a certain type of lettering, a certain look. For example, when Paige, when she is vanishing on the beach, her speech bubbles are sort of crumbling, and it really adds to, you can feel like her voice is breaking up as she's talking to Emmett about her mother. And I think that adds a lot to it. Whereas if it was just a regular speech bubble, you can get an idea as to how she might be sounding. But the lettering, obviously comics is a visual medium. So being able to see the letters reflected in the way that the character is speaking is, I think, one of the best things that you can do in a comic book. This is a fantastic story. If it's not the best series in general of the year, it's at least the very best miniseries of the year. If there's a collected edition coming out, which has not been announced yet, definitely pick it up. And if you want to, you can go grab the single issues as well. It's well worth your time to go back and find the 5 issues. I gave this ending 5 stars on League of Comic Geeks. It was a fantastic ending. I was really happy with it, and it was just a magnificent book in every aspect. Please make sure you like the video. Please make sure you subscribe. Check out these other videos here, and thanks for watching.